of using drugs and the occult and witchcraft all over again. And that's why to have a cute little witch hanging from your porch or whatever, again, you're emulating things that are of the evil one.
And also, most people think Halloween is just one day. You want to describe how it's actually 3 days? I think it's the 29th, 30th, and 31st?
Well, it's what in the occult it's called an orb. And it does, you're right, it does start up like on the day or so before it, and then it goes one day after it. And that's why, like, again, you see in the Roman Church, you have November 1st, which is, of course, the day after Halloween is called All Saints' Day, and November 2nd is called All Souls' Day in their calendar, and that's because they're just trying to kind of piggyback on this ancient pagan feast that had already been around for probably thousands of years. So, yeah, it actually starts a couple days earlier.
And also, finally, you want to give a message to all Christians, especially pastors out there. Now, I've been to a lot of churches, and they say, oh, come to Halloween, we're going to have a party, come dressed as an angel or biblical character. And you want to give a good, strong message to these pastors, and also anybody that's a Christian at that, about not celebrating this thing at all. Take no part in this.
Yeah, I would really strongly recommend that. I mean, you can do something on another night, but you don't want to really honor this night, because it is the night when darkness, if I were a pastor, I would have people pray and fast on that night, because believe me, the witches and the Satanists are praying and fasting before that to prepare to create all this cone of power, all this energy that's supposed to be raised on that night, because they believe that this is the night that the doorways are open between the realms of the dead and the realms of the living, and that spirits walk the earth. And so, you know, you don't want that kind of energy going around in your community. And so if believers would take the time to pray and fast in and around Halloween for their children, for the protection of the children and the families and the churches and the community, that would be a much better way to use the time than to have a party where little kids get to dress up like angels. Absolutely.
And when you explain how they're fasting and praying, you know, the Satanists, is that with the origins of Hell Night? Because I believe Hell Night's the night before. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in some cities they even have really bizarre things that are done on the night before, and it's called Hell Night. But you know, the point is, whatever the culture is, there's still these people that are very, very dedicated. They're like dark saints, if you will, and they will fast and pray to their gods for the destruction of the innocence of the youth, for the destruction of the morality of our young people. And we need to be just as diligent in getting on our knees and praying and fasting that our young people would stay pure, that our young people would not be defiled by the occult, and all these things. Big, big challenge for us, and we need to rise to the challenge.
All right, great. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. I know you wanted to talk about Mitt Romney during our interview during the Money Bomb, but due to overwhelming phone calls, we had to take the calls and all that. But now, you want to describe what you're going to tell me about Mitt Romney is you do with the Mormonism and everything. And you, by all people, you used to be a ex-Mormon. So if you want to give a little description of what's going on with Mitt Romney.
Well, the problem is, and I mean, I realize that either with Obama or with Mitt Romney, it's like, which devil do you choose? And the problem with Mitt Romney is he is a high priest in the Mormon church. He comes from a very old Mormon family, I think 5 generations of Mormons. And, you know, he's very much connected. He's been to the temple. He's gone through secret Luciferian ceremonies. And he's sworn blood oaths that in his mind would be more important than any oath he might take as president of the United States to defend the Constitution. And to see, the Mormon church has a weird eschatology, a weird view of the end times. They believe that one day, they call it one mighty and strong, quote unquote, will rise and will save the Constitution of the United States. And among Mormons for many years, back when I was a Mormon, which was in the early 80s, they were talking about this, that one day we will have a Mormon become president. This is what they were shooting for, even way back in the 70s and 80s. And when that happens, then we will make him the prophet. And he will become a benevolent dictator over America. And the Constitution will be done away with, and we'll bring in what's called the United Order. And if you look that up, on Google or whatever, as what the Mormon Church teaches, the United Order is a communist society where everybody owns everything in common, kind of like a commune or a kibbutz, except on a national level. And this ain't good, because it means that the Mormon Church would basically be running the country. And people say, oh, well, that's just science fiction. Well, not entirely. This is what they believe. And of course, a lot of what Mormons believe sounds like science fiction. They believe they can become gods. I mean, Mitt Romney thinks that he one day will become a god, and his wife will be a goddess, and they will reign over many planets and have many, many spirit babies, millions of spirit babies. This is Mormon doctrine. I used to believe this stuff. And the problem is there's a dark side to Mormonism, because if you actually go through the temple, which I have done many times, you will see that most of the key doctrines in the temple are actually taught by a guy dressed up as Lucifer. And there's so much Luciferian stuff involved in the temple that it's really kind of scary. You look at the Salt Lake Temple and some of the earlier temples, you'll see they're covered with pentagrams. They're covered with all-seeing eyes. We did this one DVD called Mormonism's Temple of Doom 2011 edition, which we have on our website. And we have pictures there of all of this creepy stuff, high-quality photos of inverted pentagrams. And I'm sure many of your viewers know the inverted pentagram is a symbol of Satan, upside-down, five-pointed star. And this is not good. This is the energy that's behind Mitt Romney. As nice as he appears, and I'm not saying he himself is like a devil worshiper or something. He may be, he may not be. That's between him and his God. All I know is I've been told because I have sources inside the high levels of the Mormon Church, and I've been told that he's very much plugged into the Illuminati, to the Bilderbergers, to all of these, high level, conspiracy types. And I don't know what would happen if he became president. I mean, I can't tell anybody how to vote or not vote, but I just think we need to really be on our knees praying and fasting for our country during this critical time, because we're in trouble like we've really never been in trouble probably since the days of the Civil War.
Exactly. And now, a lot of people out there say, oh, we got to vote for the lesser of two evils. But they don't understand. I mean, I have friends and family that didn't even know people like Gary Johnson and other candidates are actually on the ballot, because what the mainstream media does during their debates is only Romney and Obama. And Romney and Obama, I don't think there's any difference between the two. I mean, these people are warmongers. They support unconstitutional laws like NDA 2012, the Patriot Act, HR 647, and so on, and war with Iran. And what do you see coming out of this election here?
Well, of course, I don't claim to be a prophet, but I'm not sure. Some people have said, well, there's going to be some kind of maybe Israel will bomb, Iran right before the election, or maybe some big financial thing will happen before the election, and, to kind of bump Obama up in the polls. Because, usually if there's a crisis, people go with the incumbent. The October surprise thing, I don't really know. I mean, to me, I just offer this up to Yahweh, to the head of the universe, and say, you've got to straighten this country out. Obama can't do it. Romney can't do it. Only going back to the Bible can do it.
Exactly. And we're in big trouble. And we found out a week ago that Romney's family, his son Tag and his brother Scott, purchased, I forget the name of the company that makes the voting machines. They purchased all the, the voting machine companies, and having a big problem up in Ohio, I guess. Under court order, they're supposed to have early voting, but they're not actually doing it and they're claiming that in Democratic areas, the voting machines ain't working. Huh. You know what I mean? It's just a bunch of scandal going on. But you can see equally on both sides how they're trying to throw this election.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the trouble. At the highest levels, this government is run by the Illuminati. I mean, I think your listeners probably understand that, because when I was in this organization years and years ago, I was told that when a new guy is elected president, whether it's Obama or whoever, that he walks into the Oval Office for the first time and there's a guy standing there who's one of the 9 unknown men. And he basically sits him down and says, this is the way it's going to be. You're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. And if you don't do this, look what we did to Nixon. Look what we did to Kennedy. We can do it to you, too. And so, You know, it's like it really doesn't matter because there's a puppet master behind the scenes that is running the show, whoever happens to have the title of president.
Exactly, and a lot of people out there are already aware that, you know, the presidents are puppets. But, you know, like you said, where they get their marching orders from is the hierarchy of the world's elite, which is the Illuminati. And lastly, do you want to explain basically how the Illuminati, how they're funded, and how they actually affect all the countries, like the presidents, the kings, the queens, and so on?
Well, of course, it's traditional that in every, you know, generation, if you will, of the Illuminati, there's a Rothschild involved, and of course the huge banking dynasties, all of those banking concerns, starting with the Rothschilds. I mean, they've been creating money out of thin air, like as long as at least since the days of the Federal Reserve being started. They just, you know, make funny money all the time, and they fund it that way. They fund it through drugs. They fund it through war machines. You know, that's why every time there's a war, I mean, guess who's making all the profits? You know, it doesn't matter what countries are fighting. The profits are being made by the Illuminati, and it's drugs. But ultimately, you know, these people feed on power. That's the thing people need to understand. And when you join an organization like the Freemasons or the Mormon Church or any other false religious system, Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever, you're funneling spiritual power, occult power, if you will, the power of your own soul, your nefesh in Hebrew, into the devil's battery, if you will. And that's how you know, and of course, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you also have blood sacrifices that are used to raise power. All kinds of things are done. But people need to realize that if they aren't in the army of Yahuwah, they're, without knowing it, in the army of Satan and in the army of Illuminati, except maybe they're just down at the bottom and they're cannon fodder. That's what Freemasons are. The typical Freemason is just cannon fodder for the devil. That's all they are. And they don't even know it, most of them.
Exactly. And you want to explain basically in the early part of this country how, you know, George Washington in his farewell address warned us don't get involved with political parties, and how basically the Freemasons and the Illuminati created the Republican Democratic Party to divide people to the right and the left, which also ties into occultism. Now, in the cult, you ever see that movie Pan's Haunted Labyrinth? Now, the kids had a choice. You take the red door, which was the red, you know, the right door, and the left door was blue. And this relates into politics. You got the red, you know, represents the right side, and the blue is the left side, and this is the occult as well. You want to give your take on basically how the Freemasons planted the Democratic and Republican Party here in the United States?
Well, yeah, because that's kind of Masonic doctrine. If you look at the Masonic temple, they talk about how you have this black and white checkered pavement on the floor of the temple, and that represents this dichotomy, this false dichotomy, like you say, between left and right, between, you know, Zionism versus fascism, between, you know, capitalism and communism. That's how they work, or between left and right, between Democrat and Republican. All of these different things, they're all just a shadow play. And the reality of it is that both sides are being run by the same guy. But of course, you see, the word devil comes from the Greek word diabolos. And diabolos means to divide. That's the root of that word. And that's what the devil wants to do. He wants to divide us. And of course, we've seen our country right now become more divided than it ever has been, again, probably since the Civil War, between, you know, the rich and the poor, between the conservatives and the liberals or whatever. And that's what the devil wants, because he knows, you know, the cliche, divided we fall, united we stand. And we need to get together under Yahuwah, under the supreme, you know, deity of the universe, and join under him and under the Bible. Because if we don't get this nation back on biblical track, it's, you know, it's going to be toast.
And it is. And I mean, look at Mitt Romney now. I think what he did was, Paul Ryan, I think he's supposed to be a Catholic, whatever. But you notice how they always bring in a vice president that appeals to the public, like they wanted a woman in the White House. So, 4 years ago, John McCain brought in Sarah Palin. Even though they didn't win, whatever, but appealed to the American citizens. And he's doing the same thing because he knows, you know, the Christian movement's big and the truth movement's big. So he's hijacking this by bringing in a young Paul Ryan that claims to be of God and all that, just to, you know, go after the, you know, the true conservatives and say, hey, you need to vote for me because we're going to turn this country around.
Oh, sure. Yeah.